Every spring, millions of gardeners drag hoses across cracked soil and haul bags of fertilizer that feed their plants for one season before washing into the nearest river, destroying both money and the earth in a single growing year. Yet in rural Connecticut, one woman threw away her spade, buried her garden under a pile of spoiled hay, and grew every vegetable she needed into her 90s without ever watering, weeding, or buying a single bag of fertilizer or bottle of spray. No chemicals, no irrigation, no labor. So why did we abandon the method that could turn any patch of dirt into a self-sustaining garden for life? The answer challenges everything the modern gardening industry sells. Ruth Stout was not a scientist. She was not a farming expert or a university researcher. She was a woman with a garden, a pile of spoiled hay, and an impatience that would reshape how a generation thought about soil. Born in Girard, Kansas in 1884, Stout spent her early decades far from fields and furrows. She worked as a bookkeeper, a secretary, a business manager, even ran a small tea shop in Greenwich Village. But when she settled in Redding, Connecticut, something changed. She began to grow food, and she began to watch. For 15 years, Stout followed every rule the experts gave her. She plowed, she hoed, she weeded and watered and spread commercial fertilizer just as the agricultural manuals instructed. Each spring, she waited for a neighbor's tractor to come and turn her soil, and each spring the tractor arrived late or broke down. The growing season shortened before a single seed touched the ground. The labor bent her back. The results disappointed her hands. Then, in the spring of 1944, the plowman failed to show once more. Stout walked out to her garden and looked at her asparagus, growing thick and green, untouched by any plow. The soil around it was soft and damp beneath a layer of old leaves and crop residue. She knelt down, pushed her finger into the ground, and it sank in easily. No compaction, no crust. No need for a machine. That morning, Ruth Stout made a decision that would define the rest of her life. She was never going to plow again. Over the next 4 years, Stout refined a method so simple it bordered on defiance. She covered her garden with a permanent layer of spoiled hay, 8 inches thick. She never tilled, she never hoed. She never pulled weeds. When it was time to plant, she raked the mulch aside, dropped the seeds, and brushed the earth back over them with her bare hands. The hay smothered weeds before they could rise. It held moisture so completely that Stout stopped dragging the hose. It decayed slowly, feeding the soil beneath with a steady stream of nutrients. No fertilizer needed, no sprays required. Her vegetables were bigger and healthier than anything the plowed fields around her produced. Tomatoes, peppers, squash, corn, carrots, onions, every crop thrived under what she called her permanent mulch. By 1953, word had spread. Visitors began arriving at her garden, first in trickles, then in crowds. University scientists, gardening experts, curious neighbors. They came to see. They left unable to deny what they saw. But the loudest voices in agriculture were already invested in a different story, and Stout's quiet revolution was about to meet its opposition. Stout's first article reached Organic Gardening magazine in 1953. The editors lost it. She sent it again. They published it in 1954 under the title, "Throw Away Your Spade and Hoe." The reaction was immediate. Letters poured in from gardeners who wanted to believe and from experts who did not. At lectures, irritated farming experts challenged her from the audience. One man at a public talk refused to accept that hay full of grass seeds would not sprout weeds in the garden. The crowd sided with him. Stout stood her ground until she asked him a question that silenced the room. The seeds could not germinate under 8 inches of mulch any more than they could sprout under a brick. He sat down, but the resistance did not. The fertilizer industry had its own answer to the growing organic movement. A pamphlet circulated among agricultural professionals under the title Science versus Witchcraft. It labeled organic gardeners faddists 7 times on a single page. The language was deliberate. They did not argue with results. They attacked credibility. Anyone who grew food without purchased chemicals was not a farmer or a gardener. They were a crank, an eccentric, a witch. The timing made the campaign easy. After the war, surplus bomb factories had been converted into fertilizer plants. The industry needed annual customers. And by 1981, United States fertilizer consumption had grown tenfold. The global market now stands at $200 billion annually. In that economy, a woman who gardened for decades on nothing but hay and patience was not an oddity. She was a threat. No repeat purchases, no subscriptions, no dependency. Extension offices promoted fertilizer schedules and spray calendars. Official records from the era show a deliberate pivot. Victory garden methods that had fed 20 million families during the war were quietly buried beneath advertisements for synthetic nitrogen. Stout published her first book in 1955. She wrote hundreds of articles. She opened her garden to thousands of visitors, including university scientists who left impressed but published nothing. They did not ban her work. They did something quieter and more effective. They ignored it. Her books went out of print. Her name vanished from the textbooks. Neighbors who still tilled and fertilized called her method eccentric, the same word the pamphlet had dressed up as science. Extension agents visited her garden, took notes, and never wrote a single recommendation. 40 years of results, witnessed by scientists, documented in photographs, and confirmed by every visitor who walked her rows, reduced to a footnote in the history of American gardening. But mulch does not forget, and the science beneath it was only just beginning to be understood. A lazy garden is a living blanket, not a poetic idea, but a physical system engineered by 400 million years of evolution. Every forest floor on Earth operates on a single principle: keep the soil covered and everything beneath it thrives. Stout understood this by instinct. Science now confirms it with numbers. The first gift of the blanket is water. When soil sits exposed to sun and wind, moisture evaporates at rates that can drain a garden in days. A comprehensive review of 58 field studies published in Irrigation Science in 2024 confirmed that organic mulch reduces soil evaporation by 27 to 78% depending on material and depth. 8 inches of hay, the thickness Stout recommended, sits at the upper end of that range. That is not a gardening tip. That is physics. Every inch of the blanket acts as a barrier between the wet soil and the dry sky. Moisture stays where roots can reach it. Hoses gather dust, but the blanket does more than hold water. It feeds. As organic mulch decays, whether it is hay, leaves, wood chips, or grass clippings, microbes and fungi break it down into the very nutrients plants need: nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium. The process is slow, steady, and self-regulating. Unlike synthetic fertilizer, which delivers a concentrated burst that leaches into waterways within weeks, mulch releases nutrients over months and years. A 2024 Italian field trial, published in the journal Sustainability, measured what happens beneath a permanent mulch layer over 3 years. The carbon stored in the mulched soil, a direct measure of how alive and fertile the ground is, rose from 1.2% to 6.8%, a 5-fold increase. The unmulched control plot barely changed. Beneath the blanket, the soil was being rebuilt. No bags to haul, no invoices to pay. At the heart of this feeding process lies an invisible alliance. 80% of all land plants form partnerships with fungi that live underground. These organisms attach to root tips and extend the plant's reach by hundreds of times. Think of them as a second root system, thinner than a human hair but stretching meters in every direction. A single plant in bare soil must find every nutrient on its own. A plant plugged into this fungal web has thousands of helpers doing the searching for it. The blanket protects these networks. Bare soil exposed to sun, rain, and temperature swings kills the delicate fungal threads that took weeks to grow. Tilling shreds them in a single pass, but under a thick layer of organic material, the soil stays cool, moist, and stable. Fungi spread. Bacteria multiply. Earthworms tunnel through the softening material, mixing it into the earth and leaving behind castings rich in plant food. Each organism works at its own pace, but together they turn dead leaves into living fertility. The blanket defends as well. Modern research confirms that these soil fungi do more than feed plants. They activate defense genes inside the roots, training the plant's immune system against disease. A 2025 review published in Frontiers in Microbiology synthesized decades of findings, and confirmed that plants connected to healthy fungal networks suffer less root rot, less wilt, and fewer leaf diseases across a broad range of crops. The fungi do not just feed the plant, they arm it. A garden with a thriving underground network needs fewer interventions because the biology handles what sprays try to replace. Each layer of mulch adds another year of moisture. Each season of decay builds another inch of fertility. Each invisible thread of fungi extends the reach of every root it touches. The system compounds. It does not deplete. This is the mechanism that Ruth Stout stumbled upon in 1944, when she decided never to plow again. She did not know the science, she did not read the studies, but she watched her soil grow darker, softer, and more alive with every passing year. She harvested tomatoes, squash, corn, peppers, and root vegetables for 4 decades without fertilizer, without spray, without breaking the blanket that kept it all alive. The proof was never in a laboratory. It was in the harvest. Stout gardened her way from 1944 until the late 1970s. She was still planting at 92, raking mulch aside with her hands, dropping seeds onto soil that had not been plowed in over 3 decades. Organic Gardening magazine documented her results across hundreds of articles. Thousands of visitors walked her garden in Redding, Connecticut, including farming experts and university researchers. The evidence was always public, always open, always growing. But the proof extends far beyond one garden in New England. A retired postal worker in Oregon built his first lazy bed with cardboard, rotting logs, and a foot of wood chips over what had been compacted clay. The first year, he watered twice a week. The second year, once a week. By the third year, he watered only during a record August heat wave, and his tomatoes still outproduced his neighbor's irrigated raised beds. No fertilizer cost, no pesticide cost, no water bill worth mentioning. Not every story starts with triumph. A first-time gardener in the Midwest laid cardboard and piled fresh wood chips directly around her transplants without any green material between them to feed the decomposition process. Within 3 weeks, her seedlings turned yellow and stunted. The wood chips, still hungry for nutrients to fuel their breakdown, had pulled them straight out of the soil before the roots could get to them. She nearly abandoned the bed, but she dug in 2 wheelbarrows of aged compost and a bucket of grass clippings. Within a month, the bed exploded with growth. Her mistake became her proof. The system works, but only when the biology has what it needs to begin. A suburban family in Tennessee converted a weedy, compacted backyard into 4 lazy beds using nothing but free arborist chips, chicken bedding compost, and spoiled hay from a local farm. They spent less than $40 on seed. By the second season, the beds required no watering outside of rainfall, no weeding, and no fertilizer. The fungal web beneath the mulch, a white carpet of hair-thin threads visible every time they peeled back the top layer, was doing the work. The family simply harvested. Each bed tells the same story. Each season, the soil grows darker than the one before. Each year, the hose stays coiled a little longer. Each harvest fills a basket that no chemical made possible. Cover the ground, feed the biology, wait. The soil remembers what a forest floor always knew. It does not need us to manage it. It needs us to stop stripping it bare. Start with cardboard, corrugated, double wall if possible, remove all tape and stickers, lay it directly on the ground, on top of grass, weeds, clay, gravel, whatever is there. Overlap the edges by at least 6 inches. Wet it thoroughly as it goes down. This base smothers every weed beneath it and creates a dark, moist environment where decomposition begins immediately. Next, pile the heaviest organic material on the bottom. Fallen logs 6 to 12 inches in diameter, branches, firewood, bark. Hardwoods like oak and maple break down slowly and feed the soil for years. Never use cedar, black walnut, or pressure-treated wood. These release compounds that poison roots and stall biology. Pack the wood tightly. Every air pocket is a future sinkhole. Then add a thick green layer, the stuff that is rich in nitrogen and kicks the whole system into gear. Grass clippings, aged animal manure, kitchen scraps, coffee grounds. This is the fuel the tiny organisms need to begin breaking down the wood and cardboard beneath. Without it, decomposition stalls and the system starves. Layer it 3 to 4 inches deep across the entire bed. Cap it with 4 inches of aged compost or quality topsoil. This is where roots will establish and seeds will germinate in the first season. On top of that, spread 2 to 3 inches of screened wood chips or spoiled hay as a final mulch layer. This traps moisture, suppresses wind-blown weed seeds, and gives the soil fungi a food source right at the surface. Water it deeply one time, walk away. The bed will settle over weeks as the wood absorbs moisture and the layers compress. By the second season, the cardboard will have dissolved, earthworms will have migrated upward, and the white threads of soil fungi will be visible beneath the mulch. By the third year, the bed handles everything on its own. But there is one mistake that destroys the entire system: leaving soil bare between plants. Gardeners build the bed correctly, plant their seedlings, then expose the soil around them to sun and wind. Moisture evaporates, the delicate fungi beneath the surface dry out and die. Weeds colonize the gaps, the biology collapses. That is the bare soil bleed. The symptoms are familiar: wilted plants by midday, constant watering, weeds returning despite the cardboard layer beneath. The garden that was supposed to be lazy becomes more work than a conventional one. The fix is simple. Never leave an inch of soil uncovered. Mulch around every stem. Tuck hay or wood chips against every transplant. If a gap appears, fill it. The blanket must be continuous, or it fails. Cover the ground completely. The forest floor has no bare patches, neither should a lazy garden. If this changed how you think about what a garden can be, send it to someone who is tired of dragging hoses and hauling bags every season. The best way to unbury forgotten growing methods is to plant them in every backyard on the block. Ruth Stout proved it with 40 years of harvests and a pile of spoiled hay. The fertilizer industry hoped her name would stay forgotten. The soil waited 80 years for someone to remember. If you want more buried science like this, we have a video on the 8 banned garden hacks that corporations prayed you would never find again. Click on it and we will see you there.